The photograph wasn't supposed to be there. I stood in Marcus's basement holding a framed picture I'd found face down on his workbench and felt my stomach drop. The woman in the photo was smiling at the camera, dark hair pulled back, wearing a blue sundress. She looked happy, carefree, and I recognized her immediately from the missing persons posters that had papered our neighborhood 6 months ago. Behind me, the furnace kicked on with a mechanical groan that made me flinch. The basement suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. I looked at the photograph again, then at the workbench where I'd found it, at the locked filing cabinet beside it, at the door in the far corner that Marcus had specifically told me not to worry about. "Just storage," he'd said. "You won't need to go in there." But the door was open now, just a crack, and I could see light coming from inside. Marcus Webb had been my neighbor for 3 years. We'd developed that comfortable suburban friendship that exists in the space between waving over fences and actually knowing each other's lives. He was in his mid-40s, worked as an insurance claims adjuster, kept to himself mostly. The kind of reliable, boring presence that makes a neighborhood feel safe. When he knocked on my door last Thursday evening, he looked more tired than usual, worn down in a way that made him seem older than I remembered. "Jason, I hate to impose," he said, shifting his weight from foot to foot, "but I need to ask a favor. My mother had a fall. She's in a care facility in Phoenix. I need to fly out there tomorrow, help get her affairs sorted. Could you keep an eye on the house for a week or so?" I'd agreed without hesitation. Marcus had helped me when my basement flooded last year, spent an entire Saturday helping me salvage what we could. This was the least I could do. He walked me through the basics that evening. The spare key was under the ceramic frog by the back door. The alarm code was 1847, the year his house was built. Water the plants in the living room every 3 days, bring in the mail, make sure the place looked lived in. "The basement can get humid," he added as we stood in his kitchen. "There's a dehumidifier down there that needs to be emptied every couple days. Just pull the bucket out, dump it in the utility sink, takes 2 minutes." He'd shown me the basement door, pointed out the light switch at the top of the stairs. The basement itself was partially finished, concrete floor, drywall on most of the walls, a few pieces of furniture that looked like rejects from upstairs, a workbench along one wall, storage shelves, a door in the far corner. "That's just my workshop," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the closed door. "Keep it locked because of the tools and chemicals. You won't need to go in there." Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully, but his expression was neutral, tired, maybe a little stressed about his mother. "No problem," I'd said. "Hope everything works out okay with your mom." "Thanks, I really appreciate this, Jason." The first 4 days were exactly what you'd expect. I watered his African violets and snake plants, collected catalogs and credit card offers from his mailbox, emptied the dehumidifier bucket, which filled with surprising speed in the humid September weather. Marcus's house was neat to the point of being impersonal. Minimal decoration, everything in its place. No family photos on the walls, no clutter on the counters. Just a few generic landscape prints and a bookshelf full of true crime novels. I'd noticed that before, but never thought much of it. Lots of people read true crime. On the 5th day, I noticed the smell. If you've ever been asked to watch someone's house or noticed something strange in a neighbor's home, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. It was faint at first, barely noticeable when I came in to water the plants, but as I moved through the kitchen toward the basement door, it grew stronger. Chemical. Sharp, like bleach mixed with something organic underneath. I opened the basement door and the smell intensified. Not overwhelming, but definitely there. Wrong. I descended the stairs slowly, trying to identify it. The dehumidifier bucket was full. Maybe something had gone bad in the drain, but that didn't explain the chemical edge to the smell. The basement looked the same as it had the previous 4 days. Dehumidifier humming in the corner, workbench neat and organized, storage shelves lined with labeled boxes, everything exactly where it should be. Except the workshop door. It was open. Just a few inches, but definitely open. I could see light inside. the warm glow of incandescent bulbs rather than the harsh fluorescent of the main basement. Marcus had been very clear. That door stayed locked. I wasn't supposed to go in there. But Marcus was in Phoenix, and that door shouldn't be open. I approached slowly, my footsteps loud on the concrete floor. The chemical smell grew stronger with each step. Through the gap in the door, I could see part of a table, metal, clinical looking, and on that table what looked like tools arranged in careful rows. I should have left, should have called Marcus and asked if someone else had access to the house, should have trusted that there was a reasonable explanation. Instead, I pushed the door open. The room was about 12 feet square. The metal table dominated the center, and it was covered with tools, scalpels, forceps, clamps, things I couldn't name, all of them arranged with obsessive precision. Along the walls were shelves holding glass jars and plastic containers. Some contained clear liquids, others held what looked like biological specimens, though I couldn't tell what kind from where I stood. And then I saw the photographs. They were pinned to a corkboard on the far wall. 8 women, all appearing to be in their 20s or 30s. Professional headshots mixed with candid photos that looked like they'd been taken from a distance. Each photo had a number written on it in black marker. My heart was hammering now. I recognized 2 of the faces immediately, women from the missing person posters that had appeared around town over the past 2 years. One of them was the woman in the blue sundress, the photo I'd found on the workbench. I took a step back, then another, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't right. This wasn't the basement of a boring insurance adjuster who kept his lawn trimmed and waved when you checked the mail. That's when I noticed the filing cabinet. It was industrial gray, 4 drawers, with a combination lock on the top drawer. The other 3 drawers were slightly open, as if someone had been accessing them recently and hadn't closed them all the way. I pulled open the second drawer. Files. Dozens of them, each labeled with a number matching the photos on the wall. I pulled one out at random, number 3, and opened it. Inside were more photographs, the same woman from the wall, but these were different, surveillance photos. Her leaving a coffee shop, walking to her car, getting her mail, page after page of documentation, where she worked, where she lived, her daily routine mapped out in meticulous detail. There were notes, too, written in tight, controlled handwriting, observations about her schedule, her friends, her habits, times when she was alone, times when she was vulnerable. The file was dated 18 months ago. I closed it with shaking hands and pulled out another file, number 5, the same pattern, photographs, surveillance notes, detailed information about routines and vulnerabilities. This one was dated 11 months ago. I don't know how long I stood there, pulling file after file, each one revealing the same disturbing pattern. 8 women, 8 files, 8 carefully documented targets. Some of the files had additional sections at the back, newspaper clippings about disappearances, missing person reports. One file, number 2, had a final page with just 2 words written in red ink. Completed. Phoenix. Phoenix, where Marcus said his mother lived, where he said he was right now. My hands were numb as I put the files back, trying to arrange them exactly as I'd found them. I backed out of the workshop, my eyes sweeping across the room one more time. The metal table with its arranged tools, the jars on the shelves, the photographs on the wall. That's when I saw it. On the workbench near the door, the framed photograph of the woman in the blue sundress. It was sitting upright now, where I'd knocked it face down when I first entered. Next to it was a small velvet box. I opened the box. Inside was a ring, gold band with a small diamond, and underneath it a receipt from a jewelry store dated 3 weeks ago. The woman in the photograph, number 7 according to the label, had disappeared 6 months ago. Her case was all over the local news. 26 years old, worked as a paralegal, last seen leaving her apartment. No leads, no suspects, no body ever found. And Marcus had bought her a ring 3 weeks ago. I closed the box carefully and set it back exactly where I'd found it. Then I noticed something else, a calendar on the wall behind the workbench. Most of the days were blank, but there were a few marked with red X's. I looked closer. The X's corresponded to dates I recognized from news reports about disappearances. And there was one more X circled in red for next Tuesday. Below it, Marcus had written a single word: 8. I made it up the stairs on autopilot, every instinct screaming at me to run, to get out of that house and never come back. But I forced myself to move slowly, carefully, to turn off the basement light, to close the door quietly, to make sure everything looked undisturbed. In Marcus's kitchen, I stood with my hands braced on the counter, trying to think through the adrenaline flooding my system. My phone was in my pocket, 911, 3 digits away. But what would I tell them? That I'd been snooping in my neighbor's locked workshop? That I'd found some photographs and files that looked suspicious? Marcus was an insurance adjuster. He could claim this was all research for work or a true crime hobby gone overboard. The files didn't prove he'd done anything illegal. They just proved he was obsessive and creepy. Unless the police could connect him to the actual disappearances, I had nothing but suspicion and circumstantial evidence. And if I was wrong, if there was somehow an innocent explanation, I'd have violated his privacy and his trust for nothing. But I knew I wasn't wrong. Those files, those photographs, that calendar with dates that matched missing women, the ring. I needed evidence, real evidence that would make the police take this seriously. Something that proved Marcus wasn't just a weird true crime enthusiast, but an actual predator. I thought about the filing cabinet, about the locked top drawer. Whatever Marcus kept in that drawer was important enough to protect with a combination lock while leaving the other drawers accessible. I went back down to the basement. My hands were steadier this time, my mind focused. The workshop door was still ajar, light spilling out into the main basement. I went straight to the filing cabinet and examined the combination lock. 4 digits. Could be anything. I tried the obvious combinations first. 1847, the house number Marcus used for the alarm code. Nothing. His address. Nothing. I tried the current year, then started working backward. On the 6th attempt, 1996, the lock clicked open. Inside the drawer were more files, but these were different. These had physical evidence. A driver's license, a work ID badge, a bracelet, a set of keys, each item carefully sealed in a plastic bag with a number label matching the files in the drawers below. These were trophies, proof that the women in those photographs weren't just targets or obsessions, they were victims. I started photographing everything, the files, the items in the sealed bags, the photographs on the wall, the calendar with its marked dates, the ring in its velvet box, every piece of evidence I could find. I was photographing the metal table when I heard it. A sound from upstairs. A door closing. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. I froze, phone still raised, every muscle locked. The footsteps moved across the floor above me, through the kitchen, toward the basement door. I looked around desperately for somewhere to hide, but the workshop was small and mostly empty. The footsteps reached the basement door. I heard it open. "Jason? You down here?" Marcus's voice. Calm, friendly, completely normal. My mind raced. He was supposed to be in Phoenix. He wasn't supposed to be back for days. But here he was, and I was standing in his workshop, surrounded by evidence that he was a serial predator. "Yeah," I called up, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just emptying the dehumidifier. Be right up." "No rush. Flight got canceled, so I drove back. 20 hours straight, but I wanted to check on things." The footsteps started down the stairs. I moved fast, shoving my phone in my pocket, backing out of the workshop. I grabbed the dehumidifier bucket, thankfully full, and was carrying it toward the utility sink when Marcus appeared at the bottom of the stairs. He looked terrible. Unshaven, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. But he smiled when he saw me. "Thanks for taking care of things," he said. "Really appreciate it." "No problem. Sorry about your mom. She's stable now. They think she'll recover." He looked past me toward the workshop. The door was still open. "Everything okay down here?" "Fine. Dehumidifier was pretty full." I dumped the bucket in the sink, focusing on the simple task, keeping my hands from shaking. "Good, good." He was still looking at the workshop. "The door's open." "Is it? Must not have latched properly when you left." He walked toward it slowly. I stayed by the sink, trying to look casual, trying not to bolt for the stairs. Marcus stood in the doorway of the workshop for a long moment, his eyes scanning the room, looking for anything out of place, anything that would tell him someone had been inside. I'd been careful. I'd put everything back exactly as I'd found it. But had I? Had I missed something, some small detail that would give me away? "Well," he said, finally, turning back to me with that same tired smile. "Thanks again, Jason. I should let you get home." "Sure, glad I could help." We walked up the stairs together, through the kitchen to the front door. Every step felt like it took an hour. "If you need anything else while you're settling back in, just let me know." "Will do. Have a good night." I walked back to my house at a normal pace, resisting the urge to run. Once inside, I locked the door and immediately called 911. The 911 operator was calm and professional as I explained what I'd found. She kept me on the line while dispatching officers to Marcus's house. I watched from my window as 3 police cars arrived, quiet but quick. No sirens, no lights. They knocked on Marcus's door. He answered. They talked for a few minutes on his porch, Marcus gesturing, explaining something. Then one officer asked to come inside. Marcus hesitated for just a moment, a pause so brief I almost missed it, before stepping aside to let them in. More police arrived, then a detective, then people in FBI jackets. The street filled with official vehicles as the afternoon stretched into evening. I gave my statement to a detective who listened carefully, took notes, asked detailed questions about what I'd seen. I showed her the photographs I'd taken on my phone. She called someone, spoke in low tones, then turned back to me with an expression I couldn't read. "You may have saved someone's life tonight," she said. "That date on the calendar, we've been tracking similar patterns in 3 other states. We had suspects, but no hard evidence. This gives us what we need." Marcus didn't resist arrest. According to the news reports I couldn't stop watching over the following days, he'd confessed almost immediately once confronted with the evidence. 5 women over 6 years, across 4 states, all meticulously planned, all carefully executed. The woman in the blue sundress, number 7, they found her. And number 8, the woman Marcus had been planning for next Tuesday, they got her into protective custody before Marcus even knew the police were investigating him. But numbers 1 through 6, those women are still missing. Marcus gave out locations for 3 of them. The other 3 he claimed he couldn't remember. Didn't matter, he said. They were gone. That part of his life was over. The FBI believes he was lying about the locations, that he kept that information as leverage, or perhaps as a final act of control. Families are still waiting, still hoping for closure that may never come. I think about that a lot, about the files I didn't photograph, the evidence I might have missed, about whether there was more I could have done. Mostly, though, I think about how close it came to going differently. If Marcus's flight hadn't been canceled, if he'd stayed in Phoenix another few days, I would have finished watching his house and never gone into that workshop, never seen those files, never known that the boring insurance adjuster next door was hunting women with the same methodical precision he used to organize his basement shelves. And number 8 would have disappeared next Tuesday, just another missing person report, another family left wondering. The house next door is empty now. The bank foreclosed on it after Marcus's arrest, and it's been sitting vacant for 4 months. Someone will buy it eventually. They'll repaint the walls, replace the carpets, maybe renovate the basement, turn that workshop into a home gym or a rec room or extra storage. They'll never know what it used to be, what happened in that space, the lives that were documented and planned and ended in that carefully organized room. Sometimes I stand at my window and look at Marcus's dark house, and I think about how we lived 30 feet apart for 3 years, how I'd wave to him in the morning when we both left for work, how he'd helped me when my basement flooded, spent hours moving boxes and running a shop vac, making jokes about the joys of home ownership. How thoroughly normal he'd seemed. The detective told me that's how it works, that predators don't look like monsters. They look like insurance adjusters and accountants and teachers and neighbors. They keep their lawns trimmed and return borrowed tools and help you when your basement floods. They're invisible right until the moment someone looks too closely at the things they're trying to hide. I still check on neighbors' houses when they're out of town, still water plants and collect mail and make sure everything looks secure. But I pay attention now to the small things that feel wrong, the doors that shouldn't be open, the smells that don't belong, the workshops that are supposed to stay locked. Because I learned something in that basement, surrounded by Marcus's carefully organized evidence of his secret life. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who look suspicious. They're the ones who've learned to look exactly like everyone else. And sometimes, the only thing standing between predator and prey is someone who notices a door that's open when it should be locked, and has the courage to look inside even when every instinct says to walk away. I saved number 8. That's what the detective said. But I think about numbers 1 through 6 and their families, and I wonder if I saved anyone at all. Or if I just happened to look in the right direction at the exact moment when looking mattered. Most nights, I can convince myself that's enough. Some nights, I dream about that workshop and wake up wondering what else I missed, what other doors I've walked past without noticing they were open, what other neighbors are still hiding rooms I'll never see.